Hi everyone, it's Joel from 8400 Lights. Now for my show this year, I decided to add some new floodlights to my display. Now in past years when I've done this, I've just gone out to eBay and purchased some inexpensive 10-watt RGB floods and then converted them for use in the show. The last time I did this was 2018, and since it's been a while, I thought I would do an updated video on the conversion process and also show you some new things that I've been doing. Okay, here is one of the floodlights that I purchased off eBay. This is the way it came, so we'll just open this up and unbox it. That's our packaging, looks like that. And it's just a 10-watt RGB flood. Looks very similar to the ones I got back in 2018. Take that out. Comes with a little remote control. This is something that we won't be using, so we'll just get rid of that. And this is our floodlight. First impressions is it's very similar to the ones that I've gotten before. You can see the little IR sensor up in here. There is our chip down there. Chip looks maybe a little bit better quality than other ones. The body of this unit seems to be a little bit lighter in weight, maybe a little thinner material for the metal than what I've seen in the past. But so far so good. Again, it's meant for 110 volt AC power, but we're going to convert this over to work with a Light-O-Rama 12 volt DC controller. So we're going to start by taking off this top cover. Alright, I have all of the screws off, so we'll take off this top plate. And typically this glass plate just comes right off, but on this one, as it turns out, it looks like they've actually glued the glass plate down. So this could be interesting to figure out from there. Typically on the older ones that I've gotten, all of the electronics are right on the chip, with the chip itself. So I would need to get access under this glass plate to do anything with this. But we'll just have to see with this unit. So for now I'm going to go ahead and put this top piece back together because I can't get into it this way. Since I couldn't really see anything going at this from the front side, let's take this back cover off now and see what we can learn from the back side of the unit. Okay, now let's take a look at what we have inside the back of the unit. So this is interesting in that with the ones that I got in 2018, there were just a couple of wires going to the front, and when we disassembled the front, we found that all of the electronics and the chip itself were soldered onto a wafer that sat underneath this piece of glass and reflector. But we couldn't look underneath this on this one, but we do have more wires that are going to the front of the unit from the back of the unit. So if I was to make a guess, I would say that the individual color wires are coming all the way into this back of the unit, again along with the wires for the IR sensor, and that all of our electronics are housed in this component here, which actually works really well in our favor because all of these wires are already here. We can use those. We can get rid of these. We don't need these. and we just have to take this piece out, and it'll make converting this much easier. So we're going to go ahead and start to disassemble this and get rid of these extra components. And I'm pretty certain that this is the lines for the IR sensor that I won't need, but we'll just go ahead and pull those off for now. And that these wires here, including this black wire, are the lines for my RGB chip. So the next thing we're going to do is try to get this piece out, which it's glued into the bottom here. It looks like they put a big dollop of glue. So we'll see if we can get this out of here next. And that wasn't too bad at all. A pair of pliers and a little bit of brute force, and that came right out of there. So we're going to go ahead and clip these wires right at the edge of this block. That. And then I might try to get just a little bit of this excess glue out of here. Now again, I'm pretty certain these are the wires to the IR sensor. That would make most sense. It's over here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these off, but I do want to keep this wire, as I bet this is my common return from my 3 color wires here. One of the things I've started doing with my floodlights is using these little terminal blocks here to connect the wires that go from my RGB chip to the leads that come into the floodlight itself. And you may say, why would I go from soldering these, which is what I did before, to using a terminal strip like this? Isn't soldering going to be a stronger connection? And yes, a soldered connection would be a stronger connection than this, but I found I was replacing the RGB chips themselves on a somewhat frequent basis, and having to cut apart that solder joint and then resolder it was quite a bit of work, where I thought just using a terminal block would allow me to quickly change that connection with a lot less work. So the other thing you may be looking at this is saying, okay, if you're going to use this to connect your wires, you have 3 wires for the colors, a green wire, a red wire, and a blue wire, and then a black neutral wire here. So I have 4 wires total. Why do I have a terminal block that has 5 lugs on it? And the answer for that is, remember that the voltage on our red wire for our red color is typically less than the 12 volts, 11 volts that we can run on our green and blue wires. So we have to have a resistor in line somewhere to bring down the voltage for this red wire. So this 5th lug on the terminal block is to accommodate that resistor, and I'll show you that in a minute. So the first step that we're going to do is, I have gone to adding these ferrules onto the ends of my wires. This way I don't really have to spend time tinning them, which might be my other option. And this works really well, especially for stranded wire, to keep all of my wire strands together, so I don't have little wire strands jumping out and causing miscellaneous shorts. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and add my ferrules onto these lines here. So I've just stripped back a little bit of the insulation, and I actually have color-coded ferrules for each of my wires here. And there I have all of my wires with these ferrules on them, which will help when I go to insert them into the terminal block. I've gone ahead and pre-made my input wire for the flood and attached my connector of choice, which in this case is this little 4-wire JST connector. These have been working pretty good for me. They're not perfect, but it works pretty well, and they've been relatively inexpensive. So now I will go ahead and add this to this cover and put this through my little strain relief device here. Now this wire is not as thick as the old input lead to the floodlight, so I'm going to just wrap a little bit of electrical tape around this to make it a little bit thicker, provide a little bit more waterproofing. It's not perfect, but it will at least be something. There. Now this wire is a little bit thicker and will give us a little bit better water protection with this gland connector. Now we have added our input line to our housing, and the next thing we're going to do is add the ferrules onto these wires here. As I said earlier, typically the red line or the red color on an RGB chip runs at a lower voltage than the green or the blue does. So we want to go ahead and reduce our 12 volts down a little bit with a resistor. And so I have these resistors here. This is an 18 ohm 1 watt resistor that I purchased, and what we're going to do is we're just going to take this out and we're just going to connect it across 2 of the lugs here. So we'll have a lug that comes in through the resistor and then out again to add our resistor into our line, and this makes it very easy to change out this resistor should I ever need to. This is a little bit of a tight fit, but I can bend the wires like that, and that looks pretty good right there. And then I'll just trim these input leads down and attach this. I have my resistor added to my little terminal strip. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and finish adding all of my other wires. Now the order of these doesn't really matter. In this case I did black, green, and blue, and then I'll do the red over here. And you can do this in any order you want, just make sure that you match the same color on the other side of the block here. But for the red, because I have my resistor here, I do need to put this red right here on this side, because this will be my input. And then I just need to add my lines into my RGB chip on this side of my block, and this will be all done. Alright, there are all of my connections through my little terminal block, and incorporating my resistor to reduce the voltage on my red wire. So now I'm just going to go ahead and close all of this back up again. And there we go. we have modified this floodlight that I got off eBay, which was an 110 volt AC based unit into a 12 volt DC based unit with individual input lines for each of the colors to work in my lighting show this year. So all we have left is to test it real quick. So there's red, there's green, and there's blue. So it works. I hope you liked today's video on how easy it is to modify these 10 watt floodlights for use in a computerized light show. Please watch our other videos and subscribe to our channel 8400 Lights. Thanks and have a great day.